Thank you, Andrew. Good evening and welcome to the Tiverton Town Council regular meeting of Monday, July 13th, 2020. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. John, with the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
God,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty and
all.
justice for all. Okay. Madam Clerk, would you like to call the roll, please?
Councillor Cook.
Here.
Councillor Edwards.
Present.
Councillor Hilton.
Present.
Councillor DiMederos.
Here.
Councillor Perry.
Present.
Councillor Driggs.
Present.
Councillor Clark.
Present.
All present.
Yes, I put 2 loaves of bread in the freezer down here.
And we also have with us Assistant Solicitor DaCosta this evening. Hi, Travis.
Hello.
So we'll start with the consent agenda. Item A, approval of town council minutes, June 8th, regular session. Item B, acknowledge receipt of reports. The first is the Police and Fire Department overtime report for June 2020, Department monthly reports, June 2020, and the Treasurer's Office update financial status as of June 30th, 2020. Item C, acknowledge receipt of correspondence. First, the Town of Middletown resolution in opposition to S 2547 and House 7900, an act relating to aeronautics, airports, and landing fields. Secondly, the Smithfield School Department amend Article 1 resolution supporting H 7575 and Senate 2711, adding Section 24, right to adequate education. And finally, the Town of Burrillville resolution defending the rights of Burrillville citizens guaranteed under the First Amendment to the United States Constitution and declaring Burrillville a First Amendment sanctuary town. Would anyone like to remove anything from the consent agenda?
Yes, I would.
Donna?
Yeah.
Which item would you like?
4A1. And I also, where would that come under? This isn't, I copied stuff, but this doesn't speak a number on it. The Tiverton Fire Department.
So that would be B1 Police and Fire Department overtime report,
Yeah.
is that it? Or the monthly report?
The monthly overtime report.
Okay, so that would be B1.
Okay.
Anyone else? In that case, do I have a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda? Counselor Edwards, are you making that motion?
Yes, Madam President, I'd like to make the motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda minus 4A1 and 4B1.
Second.
Second. So we'll take a roll call vote. Counselor Cook,
Yes.
Counselor DiMederos,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
Counselor Edwards,
Yes.
Counselor Driggs,
Yes.
Counselor Clark,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Okay, Donna, item A1.
Yeah, I just want to follow up on the, let me just look at the number. It's all on general business 9A. I just want to follow up that it says Councilor Edwards suggested a maintenance page be added to the town website for the purpose of keeping residents informed of building maintenance plans in progress. So I was wondering what's going on with that. Where would it be and has it been set up?
This is Chris. It has not been set up. I've been looking to get everything in order before I do put it up. My understanding that there was a capital report that was done a while back, which I have yet to track down, that I need that before I can put the information up on the website, but we will do that.
Would it be separate or would it be under the Department of Works, Public Works? Which would
No,
it be?
I don't know where the report was generated and who has it, but I will put it up on the front page if you want. I don't care where on the website it goes.
Right. I just wanted to follow up on that. Thank you. The other thing was that the fire department, what exactly are we going by? I see like a overtime pay period, 5/22 to 6/4 is 3,000. And then the other one is 8,000. Are we going by the $2,000 a week, or $2,000 every 2 weeks?
So this is a pretty complex question, and I will answer it to the best of my ability. While the $2,000 limitation was originally imposed under Chief Malo, and it was in place for quite some time, I had to do some research to figure out exactly what was in the overtime. And I've done quite a bit of look at it, and there is quite a bit of it that is actually administratively pulled. In other words, when we don't hire somebody, when we hire somebody and we have to train them, they're on day shift, and those overtimes are really attributed more towards management than they are towards the staff. There are we didn't start the shifts until August, and there are 8 hires that is causing this as well. And the fact that we have an acting chief who we pulled out of the ranks is also causing this. There are other issues in the overtime. There are audit overtime issues that are part of that. So by the time we get to the end of June, that overtime number will be about 150,000, and about 53 to 58,000 of it is attributed to management. So
I guess my concern is that, were we holding someone to a certain standard and maybe not other people, or was there something wrong holding it to that standard? Or I'm a little concerned because I can't go into detail, which makes it difficult, but something doesn't seem right here with the standard that was set for someone else.
Denise, Chris, can I let just Denise go? She's had her hand up.
I disagree with some of this analysis. During the negotiations, we did mention all the stuff you're mentioning, Chris. That's not management. That is the problems that we've been reaching all along and encountering them. And we brought this up, and they said that it would be taken care of and this overtime would go down. A lot of what you're mentioning is everyday stuff that goes on there. Except for the fact that we have Bruce there, and except for the fact that we do have 28 days of audit period. But Donna is right. This is still higher than it should be. And you know, I respectfully disagree, but during negotiations, we said, well, we're going to have a problem because you're going to be short men and blah, blah, blah. And they said, no, overtime will not exceed that. And it has. It's not management, it's day-to-day occurrence that was our problem before that overrode the overtime. So Don is right. I mean, this is high, and we held standards to the last manager, and we should to this one.
And I think it was really unfair with, you know, it's difficult to talk about this right now. Is there some way to, I don't know whether you talk about an executive session because it was, but I'm just having a real difficulty with this because we held someone to another standard and we know the outcome of that. Of course, there was other things too, to be fair, but I have a real problem with this because
John?
So would it be fair, since it sounds like the administrator hasn't completed his analysis going all the way back to the inception, that would it be fair for the council to ask the administrator to get back to us for the next meeting? Is 2 weeks enough time to complete your analysis and give a full breakdown so that we and the council can understand? I want to make sure that we're playing with a full deck here.
Okay.
Hang on, let's just let Chris answer, and then I'll get back to Denise and Donna.
So yes, I believe I can have a full comprehensive report for you probably within the week, and that will explain the positions of at least my position with this and the staff's position with it. And There is a discrepancy as it relates to how the past employee was, brought this to our attention. But when we asked, I did not get this level of detail. That should have transpired when I asked.
Well,
Well,
hang on a second. Denise had her hand up. Denise?
Meanwhile, in the last month, our overtime is $11,000. So what's it going to be in the next week? Like I said before, Chris, you weren't a participant in getting this contract signed and done, but a lot of us hesitated going to the platoon that we're in now, and it was because of the overdrive, because of the overtime. And some of the stuff you are mentioning, I have to tell you, is stuff that we brought up, and it's just everyday occurrence. So it's not going to change the picture here.
I don't believe.
We're always going to be short men.
I really think at this point, maybe we need to have a full discussion about the whole thing, because it gets into where it's a personnel issue, and I have some real issues with what's going on here, and some fairness issues, and also we need to also look at why it went to 48 from the 56. Some real issues there. I really think we should talk about it next meeting, if everyone doesn't mind.
Yeah, if that suits everybody, I see that Nancy has her hand up. I think that giving the administrator a chance to put this down in paper so that we can see it and understand it, and have a discussion about it at the next meeting would be helpful. Nancy?
I guess I was just going to suggest, I agree with that, but I was also going to suggest that it sounds like Donna and Denise have particular knowledge about and understanding of the negotiations that went on. It would be very helpful. I don't know if Chris has talked to the two of you, but it might be helpful to meet with you just so he has a background for that, if that hasn't happened. I don't know if it's happened, but.
And also the Tim, our labor attorney has good insight into that. Might be helpful to have him too, because there was some real problems. Once again, I don't want to go into it, but as to why this very creative type of thing happened. So that said, I really don't want to discuss it any further because it gets into personnel issues and various other things.
Okay, so are we agreed that we'll put this on the agenda the next time and ask Chris for a more detailed update? In that case, do I have a motion then to approve 4A1 and 4B1?
Yes, I'll
Yes,
make a
Joan.
motion to accept them as is, with the knowledge that we will be speaking of on to this at another town council meeting.
Second.
Okay. Counselor Cook,
Yes.
Counselor Edwards,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
Counselor Driggs,
Yes, and
Counselor Clark,
he talks to Donna and Denise. Yeah.
Counselor Clark,
Yes.
Counselor DiMederos,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay. That brings us up to public comments. And we have 2 public comments that were submitted. For the benefit of the public, I will read them. The first is from Christopher Clarendon. Dear Tiverton Town Council, as a former member of both the Harbor Commission and the Fogland Beach Oversight Committee, this comment adds to a long history of recommendations and insight from those 2 entities to the town, which addresses the continued mismanagement of one of Tiverton's most valuable resources, namely the Fogland Beach Recreation Area. On Saturday, I attempted to access my mooring at the Cove of Fogland Beach and was denied entrance because the area was full, although there was parking space on the point. Prior to this, I attempted to access my mooring and was unable to because the road to the point was blocked. In both instances, I fully understand the town's position of attempting to reduce crowds during these extraordinary times during a pandemic. These steps are, I assume, in response to the state's mandates and recommendations, and I support my town in these efforts. However, at this point in time, with the implementation of phase 2 of reopening, I believe it is time for the town to recognize certain inherent rights that should be enjoyed by tax mooring fee paying residents. I have had a mooring at Fogland for more than 10 years, and I pay my fee each year in expectation that I will be able to enjoy what I've paid for. The town, by preventing me from accessing my mooring from Fogland, is depriving me of the unfettered access to my mooring. I consider having to row a dinghy loaded with either gear or guests from a greater distance than the point an undue burden. Fogland access is part and parcel of the annual fee that the town has charged and accepted. I have the legal license to use the mooring and access from Fogland, which is where the mooring is located, and should be included in the license. Otherwise, why pay for a mooring there? The town has no rational or reasonable basis for restricting my access from Fogland in these two instances, since I was there alone, wearing a mask, and had no intention of congregating with any other soul. In this case, the town is unlawfully restricting such access without due process. The number of visitors to Fogland has no connection or nexus to my ability to launch my dinghy in order to access my mooring. Therefore, the restriction as applied to individuals in my circumstances serves no legitimate town purpose, even in the face of the ongoing pandemic. It is my belief that the town should limit access to non-residents first and reserve a set amount of parking to those who have paid for moorings at this site, which would mean that a mooring holder would fall into the same category as the property owners at Fogland, a small logistical step, really. On the days I was denied parking, I made an unofficial count of out-of-state license plates and found that nearly half fit this description. In my opinion, these events represent mismanagement and an illegal breach of contract. I know I'm not alone in this situation, as I've heard from others in our community voicing the same concerns. Despite my doubts from past experience, I might suggest reconvening the Fogland Beach Oversight Committee, and I would be willing to help, lead, or assist with any ideas the town has to permanently resolve these issues. I look forward in high hopes to the council's response. Given that this is public comment, we can't necessarily respond, but we will forward this letter to the town administrator for his consideration and thoughts. The second public comment is an email received from Brian McCarthy stating, please change the ragged flag at Fort Barton. Thank you, Brian P. McCarthy. That one we will also pass along to the town administrator.
I just have, may I say something?
Well, it's public comment, Donna. We're not supposed to respond. You have something?
No, I just, she's asking if we're phase 3, so Chris could look into whether what's being done there is, it could be done differently as far as phase 3.
Right. I think that's why we'll send this letter off to the town administrator.
All right.
And he can look into it.
Sure. Thank you.
No problem. Public hearings advertised. Item A, approval of proposed amendment to Chapter 67 Floodplain Management Program regarding changes defined by the Newport County Flood Insurance Study report dated June 19th, 2020, and approved by the town council on May 11th, 2020. Just to refresh your memory, we received new FEMA firm maps that we were essentially ordered by FEMA to upgrade in our ordinance. We had a public hearing, we did that, and now come to find out the maps aren't right. And so FEMA is now directing us to rescind those maps from our ordinance. So this is what this vote will be, but we have a public hearing here first. So I'll ask Chris, are there any members of the public that wish to be heard on this topic?
There are 4 attendees. Does any of the attendees wish to speak? Raise your hand. Again, there are 4 attendees in the waiting room. If anybody would like to speak, please raise your hand. And I'm going to go one last time. 4 attendees in the waiting room. If you want to speak on this matter of the FEMA flood management plan, please raise your hand. There's nobody that's risen their hand.
In that case, we'll close the public hearing. Do any counselors have any comments or questions?
I do. why were the maps wrong? And I don't have a map to look at. I don't,
It has to do with the Cape Cod portion of the maps. They're regional. They're not, it's not just one town. And somehow something happened on the Cape Cod portion of the maps. Chris has his hand up. And so the maps were not correct.
So actually, the maps, in our opinion, are correct. It was that when they told us that we had to have our public hearing, they told us there was no exceptions to it and COVID didn't matter. So all of us jumped through hoops to make that public hearing take place. There were 2 instances on the Cape that did not. And now the federal authorities want to rescind everything back to the original plans until everybody has an opportunity to go through another public hearing. So we're going to see this again, I believe, in the future. But because another community didn't get it done, we're now asked, all of us were asked to rescind our decisions to approve. And so we're complying.
So do I have a motion? John?
Thank you, Madam President. I'll make a motion to approve the proposed amendment to Chapter 67 Floodplain Management Program regarding the changes defined by the Newport County Flood Insurance Study, report dated June 19th, 2020, and approved by the council on May 11th, 2020.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Counselor Cook?
Yes.
Counselor Perry?
yes,
Counselor DiMederos?
Yes.
Counselor Driggs?
yes,
Counselor Edwards?
Yes.
Counselor Clark?
yes,
And I'm also a yes. Appointments and resignations. We have 3 this evening. The first is for the planning board, which is a 9-member board, 3-year terms, and there are 3 vacancies. The first applicant is Christine Shea of 2148 Main Road, and she is requesting a new appointment. Madam Clerk, is Christine available? Is she in the waiting room, Chris, for an interview?
Christine Shea. I have in the waiting room, so hang on just a second. Okay, she's coming over. Okay, can you hear us, Christine?
I can hear you.
Okay,
Hi, Christine. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
So you have your application for the planning board, and generally there's a short interview. So
Okay.
if you'd like to just tell us a little bit about yourself and your interest in joining the planning board, that'd be great.
Sure. So my husband and I moved here 3 years ago. We're from the area. I grew up in Little Compton. And I'm an associate with the Brewster Thornton Group Architects, and I run our community division. So I design things like fire stations and veterans homes and community centers. So the planning board seemed like a good fit. I basically wanted to do something that was productive, and the planning board opportunity came about, and it seemed like a good fit. So here I am.
Well, thank you. And your resume is certainly very impressive. And I noticed that you have an MBA in sustainable development and your LEED accreditation, which is obviously something that the town is very interested in. Do any other counselors have any questions? John?
Thank you. And Christine, thank you for applying. It's nice seeing somebody who's got experience in a relevant industry applying for one of these boards. And I'm really appreciative of that. The only question I have for you, given that you are in the industry and it sounds like your firm does some work in public spaces, do you foresee any potential conflicts coming up? Because obviously, your presence on the planning board might preclude your firm from bidding on projects and that sort of thing that would have to come in front of the planning board. And I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. component.
I am. Yeah, I am aware of that. Many of our partners are on their planning boards. It
Okay.
hasn't been an issue as of yet. So we're confident in being able to figure it out.
That was it. Thank you.
Any other members have a question? Steve?
Yes, hello, Christine. I
Hi.
have to ask because we asked this question of everybody. Have you attended any of the planning board meetings?
I
Thus-
have not,
Okay.
but I look forward to it.
Okay, we usually ask that question, I guess, because some people may not know exactly what they're getting themselves into.
Sure.
I see that you have quite a bit of experience with various public organizations, so it's
Mhm.
probably not that critical. You probably have a better idea of what you're getting into than some people. But I would strongly suggest that, well, I guess if we approve, you will not have an opportunity to attend until your first official meeting, but I was just curious if you had attended.
No, not in an official capacity. We obviously have to go against planning boards as architects to deal with a lot of our projects. So I understand the process, but I have not attended a Tiverton planning board meeting as of yet.
Nancy?
Yeah, hi, Christine.
Hello.
I just want to say I was very impressed with your resume and your experience
Thank you.
and your willingness to step forward to help Tiverton on what seems to me a very nice fit for you. So I am very impressed, and that's.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Here we go. Anyone else? In that case, Christine, our normal process for a new applicant is that we interview at one meeting and then we vote on the appointment for the next meeting.
Okay.
So that's, generally the way that it works. If you haven't had a chance, I realize that going to meetings is a little tough because they're only but if you have an opportunity to speak with the planning board chair, Susan Gill, or the town planner, I would encourage you to do that as well. And we'll put your appointment on for our next meeting.
Okay, I will absolutely do that.
Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Christine.
We also have two reappointments to the planning board. Again, there are 3 vacancies. So we have 2 members who are seeking reappointment. The first is Dave Perry of 78 Bramble Way, requesting reappointment with a term to expire July 15th, 2023.
So may I speak?
Yes, Donna.
So there's 3 sort of openings, and one is new, and because Mr. Paul Amaral stepped down. Unless someone else is going to come, I don't see any reason why not to waive and just appoint these people.
Well, we normally do reappointments without, that's not usually a problem. And it's the council's prerogative. The council can vote, to waive an appointment for a new applicant if it so desires, if somebody chooses to make a motion to do so. So,
Well, I don't see any problem with this because it's not like there's 4 people and 2 are already on and they've done a very good job. So, except that there's a new person. If she was the only one applying, then of course would make the waiver, but it's almost the same thing, really, it looks to me. So anyway, I'm gonna make a motion to waive the process of going to the next meeting due to the fact that there really is 1 open spot and she's very qualified. And so my motion is to appoint these people, the 3 of them, tonight.
well, you've only got to waive the new appointment.
Okay, the new appointment. I'll waive for the new appointment.
Okay, so there's a motion to waive the appointment process for a new appointment for Christine Shea to the planning board. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Donna?
Yes.
Trish,
Yes.
I have a question. We also need a motion to waive, I'm sorry if I missed this.
Did I
but We
say?
need a motion to waive all of the appointments.
We
Just
do, but
because-
the other two we can do is, the other two we can do is waive, a motion to waive them as reappointments.
Right,
Right.
right.
So we're gonna end up with six motions here out of this. We really should do something about this policy, but the vote on the waiving for Christine Shea's appointment, Donna,
Yes.
Joe Perry,
Yes.
Denise,
Yes, but I do want to say that the reason why we don't do it for new appointments is because we just met the person this evening. And so the theory was that we would think about it and see if we had any further questions. That was the reason why we don't do it for new appointments. And I think as an overall procedure, I think it's a wise one, but I'll say yes to this.
Nancy,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Joe Perry,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So now we need then a motion for an appointment for Christine Shea with the term to the planning board with the term to expire July 15, 2023. John?
Oh, you just said it, so I'll make that motion.
Okay.
A
Is there a
second.
second?
Second.
Okay, Nancy's the second. Donna,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Denise,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So congratulations and thank you to Ms. Shea for joining the planning board. So if we're going to do both the reappointments then for the existing members, do I have a motion to waive the process for the reappointment of the existing members tonight? John?
So moved.
So I'll make that motion to waive our policy for reappointing existing members of boards
For this
Second.
evening.
for this evening.
There's this, okay. Denise? Are you a yes or are you a
I'm a yes.
Denise? Steve?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay. So the first is a reappointment, as I said, for Dave Perry, an existing member requesting reappointment through July 15, 2023. John?
I'll make a motion to reappoint Dave Perry, 78 Bramble Way, for an appointment that will expire 7/15/23.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll
Second.
second it.
Okay. Counselor Cook?
Yes.
Counselor Perry?
Yes.
Counselor DiMedeoris?
Yes.
Counselor Driggs?
Yes.
Counselor Edwards?
Yes.
Counselor Clark?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. And then the second is for Susan Gill, 1392 Main Road, requesting reappointment with the term to expire July 15, 2023. John?
So I want to make a motion to reappoint Susan Gill, 1392 Main Road, for a term to expire 7/15/23.
Second.
And Joe Perry's the second. Counselor Cook?
Yes.
Counselor Perry?
Yes.
Counselor DiMedeoris?
Yes.
Counselor Driggs?
Yes.
Counselor Edwards?
Yes.
Counselor Clark?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. So thank you to all the volunteers at the planning board, and we wish them good luck. Moving
Madam
on.
President,
Yes, John.
just in case Christine Shea did not see the rest of the meeting, maybe we could have somebody reach out and let her know.
Madam Clerk.
Yes, I'm going to have to reach out to her to do the oath anyway, so I will reach out.
Excellent. Number 8, the council sitting as a board of licensing advertised Jonathan Snyder, the Tiverton Land Trust, request approval of a special event permit for a drive-in movie night at Pardon Gray on Saturday, August 1st, 2020 at 8:30 p.m. I don't know if there's anybody here to speak on that or not. Chris, I don't know if there is anybody, but there is a fairly detailed application in the packet for a movie night. Using social distancing and COVID-approved drive-in movie theater. The sound will be submitted through people's car stereos, taking place at Pardon Gray on the Land Trust property at 8:30. Though it doesn't say what the movie is.
I know, I was wondering that too, but anyway.
So I have 3 people in the waiting room. They're all town employees. So
Okay, so in that case, do I have a motion? Nancy Mello?
All right. They did say they didn't know what the movie was going to be yet. However, it says on or around August 1st. I think that's allowing themselves for a rain date or something. So I'm just letting you know if it's not on August 1st, it says on or around.
Okay.
Is this gonna be a family movie or
No, we don't know. I would think.
adult only?
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve a special event permit for on or around August 1st?
So
For the
moved.
Tiverton Land Trust, John,
I'll make that motion.
is there a second?
Second.
I'll second it.
Denise is a second. If there aren't any other, Joe Perry, did you have a comment?
Yeah, are they required to get a detail for that because it's at night area? Is that one of the requirements, special permit?
I'm sorry, I can't hear him.
He wants to know if there's a detail requirement if it's a nighttime movie.
Yeah.
I don't even know that it is nighttime, but I will check into it. If they are required to have a detail, they will.
Yeah. It does
Of
say,
course,
that-
it's
it does say that you need approval of the police. So I think if the police needed detail, they'll let them know that.
Good.
Okay.
No, if there's gonna be a policeman walking around shining flashlights into the cars.
All right. We'll take a roll call vote. Counselor Edwards,
Yes.
Counselor Clark,
Yes,
Counselor Driggs,
Yes.
Counselor DiMederos, Denise,
yes.
Counselor Perry.
Yeah.
Counselor Cook,
Yes.
and I'm a yes also. On to general business. DPW Director Rogers requests approval of budget transfers from account 5540-6451 snow removal to 5540-6240 uniform rental for $2,025. Account 5540-6451 snow removal to 5540-7423 supplies and miscellaneous for $240. Also from the snow removal account to 5540-6914 water and sewer for $7,000. And one more from the snow removal account to 5530-6240 uniform rental for $211. And then finally, 5530-7139 engineering testing permits to 5530-7198 recycling center study for $9,400. And then from Fund 255, the Rhode Island Resource Recovery Recycle Fund to 5530-7198, the recycle center study for $6,102. Chris, I don't know if the DPW director is out. I see Rick is here. If he wants to give us an overview here.
Yes, thank you. I'm happy to give an overview on the uniform rentals for both the landfill and the road crew. When the last uniform company left, which was last year, near the end of last year, they submitted a bill for lost or missing uniforms. That amount is in dispute. We have told them that we feel that it is incorrect by a gross amount, but nonetheless, we have to encumber that money and thus have to transfer funds to cover that money. On the supplies and miscellaneous, most of that is due. In fact, we were doing all right until we had to get more landfill receipt forms, which are about $410. So we need to transfer $240. on the water and sewer. On November 1st, 2019, there was a water line break in the parking lot of DPW. A great amount of water was lost by the North Tiverton Fire District. And when so there was discussion about the town may have to pay that amount. So when the bill was submitted for the water, we forwarded that to the trust, and that is currently being reviewed by the trust as to whether or not it's a covered item. It appears that it would not be a covered item, but we don't know that yet in writing. So we encumbered the money. It was about $7,047. And if the trust does not cover it, then the town DPW may have to pay that amount to North Tiverton Fire District for lost water. And the recycle center study.
Rick, before you go to the recycle center study, I think John has a question on the water.
I most definitely do, Madam President. So, Rick, who owns the infrastructure that failed? And was it because we drove something into it, dug it up? Did the water main just break because we have aging infrastructure in this town, or is this something that we did?
Yes, John, we installed the water line connection. My understanding, it was maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago. Over time, there was settlement. It was just maybe 10 feet west of the North Bay Garage, DPW. Due to that settlement, looks like a rock eventually wore out a saddle area, and water eventually at some point between October 31st at night and the early morning hours or so of November 1st, they estimate that about 1 million gallons of water was lost before they found, when the alarm went off, it took them a while to find the location. Once they did, they turned the water off. But it's in the DPW garage parking lot, that area.
So I guess the follow-up question is actually for the solicitor. Is this a common thing? Like, if a water main breaks under a town street, does the town end up shouldering the burden for what they lost? Because I can tell you, all you have to do is live in this town for a year, and you realize that the infrastructure, the water main infrastructure in this town, is so old, and that's probably why we have two different entities that are controlling the water in our town. For a town of what? I think they service like 7,000 households. Meanwhile, one entity, carries all of the island. And on top of that, Rick just mentioned here that this was done, 10 or 15 years ago, 5 years ago. Is there a warranty for who did the work? I mean, I'm assuming that when we installed this, the North Tiverton Fire District came in and inspected it and gave us the thumbs up. So if somebody looked at this, then I fail to see how the town is responsible. I really do. And I cannot see transferring $7,000 just so we can encumber funds to make the Tiverton, North Tiverton Fire District happy.
So, Rick, do you know how long the trust is out and giving a response on that? Because without knowing the policy or knowing if there's a warranty or really have any documents in front of me, it's hard to answer that question. But wondering, Rick, if you have any idea where the trust is even leaning on that?
Yes, Travis and John. The trust is, by phone call, definitely leaning towards not covering it because it's not a covered occurrence. But the North Tiverton Fire District, in fairness to them, has not yet demanded payment. They have submitted a bill, and so we've gone through the procedure. In the event that we may have to pay for it, that's why we encumbered the funds and thus request a transfer of that.
So if I could just, Madam President, if you'll allow me just one more comment, there is not a chance that I will vote to encumber these funds. And I think that we should take that bill and send it back to North Tiverton. And if they really want this money, they can have their lawyer call our lawyer and we can sort this out. But it's unfathomable to me that we would even be thinking about just handing out $7,000 for something that broke when last time I checked, if I have a water main break on my street, the town, the North Tiverton Fire District or Stonebridge Fire District, they don't come to my house and demand payment for the water that's spilled out of it. So if it's their infrastructure that leaked, it's their problem, and it sure as heck is not the town's.
Denise? Denise, you're muted.
And-
You're muted.
I'm trying not to have the hum there. When they took over this, I agree with John. When they took it over, didn't they take over the infrastructure? And then if something breaks in this infrastructure, it's their responsibility. That's what I would assume. Any answer to that? Like, are the pipes theirs? Why do we take ownership of this?
So I can try to answer this. The water department owns the infrastructure that's in the roads. Where this break was on town property. It's no different than if the water line broke between the road and your house. You own the infrastructure between where it connects on the road and to your own property. You have to replace it. This was a failure on our property. It was not the water department's fault.
All right.
Donna, did you have a question?
That's what I was wondering. Chris just answered it.
Okay. All right. So then moving on, Rick, I think the next you were about to talk about the recycle center.
Yes, thank you. And just to emphasize, so far, North Tiverton Fire District has not demanded payment. They have simply submitted a bill and it's being discussed. So that's why we did what we did. And on the, thank you, on the recycle center, we have some money left over, is my understanding, in the Rhode Island Resource Recovery Corporation Recycle Fund. So we're asking for a transfer of some of those funds. There's not a lot left after we transfer that 6,102. And we're asking for some to come out of the landfill engineering testing permits. And basically, the DEM requirements and the amount of work that's being done is more than expected to get the DEM permits for the recycle center.
Okay. In that case, I don't know if anybody has any other questions for Rick or anybody wants to make a motion for one or more of these items. John?
So I'd like to make a motion, but I also have one question for the solicitor before I do so. I know we feel like we've talked about this ad nauseum before, and it's probably me misremembering, but Fund 255 is a restricted account. We do have the ability to remove those funds and send them to the recycling center study. Yes or no, Travis?
It's certainly, I'm unsure, but if it has to do with the recycling, I don't know what the account is actually restricted to.
Okay, it's probably me misremembering. I think this is okay. I think we pulled money out of here before, so.
Yeah, we have.
Okay, so.
We have, because it's going to be used for recycling.
Okay.
It just has to be used for something for recycling.
So in that case, I'll make a motion to approve 9A 1, 2, 3. I'm sorry, 9A 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6. I want to take 3 separately.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Counselor Cook?
I just wanted to ask with this recycle money, where we are with the landfill extension. That we would need to be doing this at this time when we've requested that the request for the extension of closure of the landfill be 2 years, and we haven't heard anything.
Our meeting is on the 16th, and we did apply to do our freshwater wetlands, and DEM required that it be, we did stormwater wetlands, and they changed the permitting requirement to be freshwater wetlands, which is the reason for the increase in the permit fees.
I think the point is, though, we are pursuing
Yes, we are.
conversations with DEM, but in the meantime, until at such point we get a determination, at least with the engineering, we need to continue to go forward. And I think it also shows DEM good faith that, you know, we do have an intention of eventually being able to close the landfill. So this is where we are in the process. So there's a motion. Was there a second? I don't.
Yeah.
Yes, Denise seconded.
Thank you. So we'll take a roll call vote. Counselor Cook,
Yes.
Counselor Edwards,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
Counselor Driggs, Nancy Driggs.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Clark,
Yes.
Counselor DiMederos,
Yes.
and I'm a yes also. So that leaves item 3. John?
So I'll make a motion to deny the transfer of 9A3 from account 5540-6451 to 5540-6914.
Is there a second? There's no second. Okay. In that case, is there another motion on item 3? Well, if there isn't, I will make a motion to transfer $7,000 from the snow removal account to the water and sewer account, with the caveat that that this money not be expended without a final determination from the Tiverton, from the interlocal trust, as well as a discussion and negotiation with the town solicitor, the town administrator, and the North Tiverton Fire District.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. John?
So, thank you, Madam President. I just want to reiterate that I think that we've seen over the years the structure in which the water is distributed in this town is rife with problems. You know, chief among them is aging and archaic infrastructure. And I think that it's wholly unfair to our constituents, the voters of this town, that we shoulder this bill when, you know, we have no determination on how old this infrastructure is, whether or not it's actually our fault, and whether or not, North Tiverton Fire District owns it or if they've inspected it. I think there's a lot of stuff left unsaid, and with the precarious state that our budget's in now, I think $7,000 can go a long way to help somebody, help out some other departments.
John, I don't disagree with you, and that's why in my motion, the money would be encumbered but not spent, again, until the trust rules and both the town administrator and the town solicitor have a chance to review the entire situation and negotiate and discuss responsibility. But I think the issue is that the money, because it's the end of the year, the funds need to get encumbered in case there is some bill, hopefully not this much, that we actually do have to pay. So there's a motion and a second. Counselor Cook,
Yes.
Counselor Driggs,
Yes.
Counselor Clark,
Yes.
Counselor Edwards,
Yes, Chris, go get us that money back.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
Counselor DiMederos,
Yes.
and I'm a yes.
If I may say something, Trish?
Yes, Rick.
Thank you. Just so it's clear, DPW did not and has no intent on paying this $7,047.50 unless we're required to. And certainly we are going to discuss that. So thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
Okay, and then moving on to general business, item A. Again, we have 2 item A's on our general business agenda tonight. Town Administrator Chris Cotter requests approval of budget transfers. The first from 2190-5270, the dental insurance to 1050-7451, legal solicitor for $13,763. Also, from the dental insurance account to 1120-7890, the town administrator's account for 4768, account 2190-5268, health insurance to 1120-7980, unfunded liability for $89,496, and finally account 3330-5102, the police AFSCME account to 3330-7423 police supplies for $2,726.
So
Kurt?
let me explain. The very first one is the legal solicitor bills. Before we did a look at the final determination where we're going to stand for the year, it was about $3,700 in the red. And I knew that there was still one bill pending that was outstanding, which we are somewhat still in dispute, but it's a little over 10 grand, which accounts for the total 13,763.24. And I know one of the questions might be, why is this over from what our contract with the solicitor is? There was a point in time during the year where we actually were paying for 2 solicitors. So when we were paying for Gio and paying for Mike, but we will get those bills resolved. On the second item, all the COVID expenditures that were non-salary related. So the sneeze guards that we bought, any of the equipment that we bought, signage, any of those things, were all put into an account. And we were originally agreed that we would probably pay them with snow money. But Denise told me just to find the biggest accounts that had surpluses in them were the insurance accounts. So that's where I drew those 2 items from, was the dental for both the legal and for those COVID related expenditures. The third item, I know it's a staggering number, but it's something that we've already approved. They're the 2 major settlements, the Monroe settlement and the Faulkner settlement. They're in unfunded liability where there was no a budget for them. So they do need to be, monies need to be transferred to take care of that, so it's not red. And then as I went through the rest of the budget, I did find that the police account had $7,600 worth, $2,700 worth of unfunded. It was in the red, and he's got money in his Ask Me account. So that'll clean that account up so it's not in the red anymore. And I believe those are also somewhat related to COVID-related expenditures.
And Chris, some of these COVID-related expenditures will eventually be submitted to FEMA for reimbursement, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Does anyone, John?
So if it'll please the president, I'd like to make a motion for 9AA, 1, 2, and 3, and 4 to approve those transfers as requested by the administrator.
Is there a second?
Second,
Okay. Counselor Edwards?
Yes.
Counselor Perry?
yes.
Counselor DiMederos?
Yes.
Counselor Clark?
Yes.
Counselor Cook?
Yes.
Counselor Driggs?
Yeah,
And I'm also a yes.
Wait a minute, Madam President,
Oh, Nancy?
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. If there's any discussion, I'm just, why is all this money coming? Why do we have like dental? Why is all this health money available to be put into these accounts? I'm not sure.
No, some of it is because we've had a number of personnel changes in the year that we didn't need those monies. We've had a number of vacancies that would account for that. So that's my understanding. And I also didn't budget the original number, so I don't know why it has, other than the vacancies that we've had, the transfer of, sometimes when we expect people to be hired on, they don't take the insurance, or they only need a single plan, they don't need a family plan. So there are a number of reasons like that.
I think the other thing that happens with dental and health insurance is that the final numbers for the cost are never known until after we settle our budget. So I think the treasurer gets estimates on potential increases, in a given year, but the actual final, cost of the plans isn't known until after we do our budget. John?
So just to expand on that, I think the term you're searching for is experience. So our experience is what determines our rate. And because the trust, we use, for instance, Blue Cross Blue Shield, but they just administer the plans. They aren't the actual insurance. It's self-insured. So it's a giant risk pool. And so based on our experience and the experience of the trust as a whole, the cost to provide health insurance and dental and some of these other plans is based off of the actual experience that we have during the year. And so that's why you come to the end of the year, sometimes we owe money, sometimes we are owed money. But that's why we're a big risk pool that we're part of with the interlocal trust. But it's not like your Blue Cross bill through, work where, the premium is $500 a month and you pay $500 a month and that's it. Ultimately, come to the end of the year, there might be money coming back to you. And that's from what I understand, based on the solicitor's reports in previous meetings, that we've had a very favorable experience over the past year, coupled with vacancies, and that's what created a surplus in those accounts. But thank God we have it.
So our expectation for 2021 that came in, I think it was early June, came in far less than what was anticipated that would have been budgeted and gone through the FDR already. I think instead of 3%, it went down to 1% or 1.5%. So there's a discrepancy there alone that happens annually that, like John said, it may go up, may go down. But this year we've got significant monies left in those accounts.
Okay, so Nancy, I was waiting for you on your vote.
Yeah, yes.
You're a yes, and I'm also yes. Item B, discussion and vote on extension of FTR resolutions as previously approved by the FTR on May the 18th of 2019. So when we voted to carry forward last year's budget for the first quarter or up to the first quarter of this fiscal year, as well as the tax levy, we didn't carry forward the budget resolutions that were passed at the FTR. And those include things like the pay-as-you-throw bags and the restricted paving account. So essentially what I'm asking for tonight is a vote to carry forward the same until the next FTR, the resolutions that were passed last year, so that we can continue to do things like fund the pay-as-you-throw account and the restricted paving account and those other resolutions. Nancy?
Now, I wasn't quite sure what this referred to, but I have a huge question on this. As I understand it, the legislation that State Rep Jay Edwards put through sort of blessed our carrying forward the levy, the budget type stuff. It did not address resolutions. And normally I believe under state law, the resolutions last for a year. So I guess what's our authority to do this?
I think that remember that the resolutions encumber budgetary items. So they're not, they encumber the budgetary items. So when we carry forward the budget, we also need to, I believe, and Travis can speak to this, although, and I know that Mike has looked into it, that we're essentially carrying forward those budgetary resolutions, which make up part of our budget, until we, have our next FTR and have whatever resolutions are passed at that time.
I guess I'm curious as to why resolutions were not included in the legislation that State Rep Edwards put through.
Because we are one of the very few towns that have a process where people put budget resolutions on whatever process. I mean, in many communities, they don't have budget resolutions. They're just simply built into the budget. We're a bit of an outlier there. Travis, I'm going to let you speak to this if you would.
No, that's actually right, Trish. And I think right now we're just trying to be able to carry the appropriation and the levy over so that for this next quarter, there is no change at all. We don't have to pick and choose. Obviously, the town council resolution, the budget committee resolutions are kind of worked in and entangled within our budget. And so we're just trying to keep status quo for the next 90 days.
And it's your opinion that the legislation that was passed would cover the resolutions also?
It allows us to continue with the resolutions also, yes.
Why do you say that? I'm curious, because the language was really to continue with the levy, and it didn't specifically.
It gives us the ability to push our FTR, right? And the FTR is where we're going to have different or changes to the resolutions.
Donna?
I guess the way I'm looking at it is that as of June 30th, the FTR resolutions expired. Is that so? Really, we're kind of in violation of using them right now. Here we are in July and it's past the year. So is that why we need to vote for the extension to at least let them carry until the FTR and the new resolutions, or?
And so if you recall the statute that was passed,
Hmm.
sorry, can you guys hear me? I'm hearing an echo. If you recall, the statute that was passed had a retroactive date from when the emergency declaration of emergency was issued by the governor. And so these resolutions were continued, are able to be continued dating back to that date.
Okay, the question I have is, I was kind of bothered me is that the whole time we were doing executive orders, that I just felt, I'm not going to talk about anybody else. I just felt like something was very wrong with the process that was going on. We said it was illegal. And so why would you need to do a retroactive if you're telling me that something's legal, and then sort of a cover your you know what, you put into a bill that it's retroactive. Now, I personally had a problem with that. On the other hand, I felt I was kind of in a bad place because not to vote for the bill that I didn't agree with because it had that retroactive in there. And there was a couple of other things in there I didn't agree with, but to have the levy go forward so we could, tax people and have money to run the government, I had to sort of bite the bullet, so to speak. I didn't agree with that last sentence at all. And it made me wonder just that why was it put in there if everyone was so certain that everything was legal about the executive orders? You wouldn't need to put it in there. It just didn't feel right at all. I didn't agree with it.
I'd like to respond to that. We didn't write that bill in the town of Tiverton. That bill was crafted by the League of Cities and Towns on behalf of a number of municipalities who asked for this. We didn't get to vote for it either, Donna. You couldn't vote for it. That was the bill that was passed in the General Assembly. And however they structured it, because various municipalities have financial town meetings and financial town referendums or whatever it is at all kinds of times. So when they structured this in order to cover those communities, and I will tell you this, when the coronavirus thing first happened, the very first week that the governor issued her executive order, and I can't remember what community it was, there was one community that had their financial town meeting scheduled. And they said, what do we do? And the directive from the governor's office is, you got to cancel it. You got to postpone it. You can't, you can't have this. So there were communities who were well past their deadline before anything ever got done. So I believe, my understanding is that the League of Cities and Towns structured that language in that bill for the General Assembly that way. We don't have a choice. We had, this isn't a bill that we wrote. I mean, and we didn't get to vote on that. That was voted on at the General Assembly, not by the town.
Yeah, that comes back. It is a matter of fact. Our resolution was in support of that bill. Was that correct? But
it was.
But I don't agree with the bill. I guess that's the way it is.
Well, you did have an opportunity to vote on that resolution, Donna. John?
So, Madam President, maybe this is a question for Travis, but I'm confused as to why we're under the assumption that our resolutions can't be continued. Because it doesn't seem to say anywhere in our charter that resolutions have an expiration date of 1 year from the date of enactment. In fact, it doesn't say anything. It just says that if they're adopted, then they're adopted. And to my recollection, we typically don't put expiration dates on these resolutions when they go forward. So perhaps I'm incorrect here, but I'd like Travis to weigh in on it because I don't see any timelines whatsoever mentioned.
I think you're incorrect.
Well, that's fantastic, but the question was more for the solicitor.
I understand, but I think
So I understand what you're saying, John, essentially, and I would go back to this is We're just trying to ensure that there's clarity and status quo for the next 90 days. There's an FTR coming up hopefully in 90 days. And so we want to make sure that everything that has to do with the budget and is the budget and is the levy and is the appropriations are the same. It's really.
I think we're trying to err on the side of caution here to make sure that we're completely covered. You know, with the intent that these are things that the voters adopted at the FTR, and we just want to continue them until the next FTR. Denise?
Just to answer John's question, the best I can is every solicitor we've ever had has given us the advice that resolutions are only for that year.
Yeah.
And then if we want the resolutions to continue, we have to put them back on.
Correct.
That's what my understanding has been.
Correct.
So under that logic, if we're still under the prior year, then wouldn't the resolutions continue? And we just want, and all the Madam President is asking for is a vote from us in the affirmative that we believe we're still in last year.
Here's the
Am I
problem.
understanding this correctly?
Here's the problem. We're not in the prior year. They expired June 30.
No, they don't actually expire June 30th. There's no language that says that they're expired. They do refer to dates of certain things that happen on June 30th, but they don't actually have an expiration date. And I do think, to John's point, and, you know, to Travis's, you know, sort of confirmation on this, is that, you know, legally we may not absolutely need this vote, but for the purposes of making sure that we've dotted every I and crossed every T, and that there's no questions, nor are there any questions for the treasurer when it comes time to do the audit, that we have in fact taken a vote to ensure that the resolutions that the voters passed last year continue until the next FTR and their opportunity to vote on a new set of resolutions. John?
So I think we've kind of reached the Rubicon here, and the discussion is just going in circles. So I'd like to make a motion to approve an extension for all FTR resolutions as previously adopted by the financial town referendum from May 18th, 2019 for the period until the next FTR.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Councillor Cook?
Yes.
Councillor Driggs? Nancy Driggs? You're muted.
Yeah. Yes,
Councillor DiMederos?
not comfortable with it.
Yes.
Councillor Clark?
Yes.
Councillor Edwards?
Yes.
Councillor Perry?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, which brings us to the next thing. And that is a discussion and a possible vote on holding a public hearing on a proposed ordinance regarding the casino revenue. So I think by now, and hopefully people are watching, are aware that in fact, our guaranteed casino revenue of $3 million is not in fact guaranteed, and that we are not receiving that funding this year. And based on the state's legal interpretation of the legislation that covers that, it is highly unlikely that we would be receiving that same $3 million guarantee next year. This was not something that was potentially not anticipated when the casino vote was taken, and then 2 years ago when the then council put forward a charter change that would have prohibited placing the casino revenue into the operating budget. There was a charter amendment that was proposed by the council that would have restricted it to non-reoccurring things. In other words, things like the capital budget or infrastructure, but not to put it into operations, because once you build it into your operations budget, if it goes away, you have an enormous financial hole, which is what has in fact happened here. That charter change failed by 13 votes. It was very, very close, but it was heavily campaigned against by the Taxpayers Association. And I think a lot of people just, thought, well, it's $3 million and it's guaranteed, and it's just not guaranteed. So this year, we ended up in a budget crisis at the end of the year, which was primarily resolved by cutting all the capital and cutting as many, excuse me, while I get rid of the squeaky truck. Out, come on.
Oh, levity is always great. He just wants to play.
They were starting already. You can see them in the background starting.
Apologies, but the giant squeaky toy in the background would have just made this impossible for anybody to pay attention. So sort of that's where we are. And I know that, there are some folks who are going to say, look, this was the vote of the people. Although I tend to think that right now, given what's happened, a great many more people realize the risk of putting this revenue into your operating budget, because the thing that everybody worried about happened has actually happened. I don't think anybody expected it to happen this quickly, and I don't think anybody expected it to happen because of a pandemic, but it's happened nonetheless. I think that there are a couple of options here, but the reason that I would like the council to consider, and I'm not asking for a vote on this tonight as to whether or not you would support it or not, I'm asking for a vote to support going out to a public hearing to consider this ordinance and let the public weigh in. The reason that I think that an ordinance is worth considering is that even if our own elected budget committee, which if you listen to their discussion the other night seemed, although they didn't take a vote and I don't want to speak for them, they seemed inclined based on what's happened, not to put that $3 million back into the operating budget because, it's not coming. So then you'll have an unbalanced budget. However, the way that our charter is written around the FTR, there is nothing in that, nothing that would potentially stop an individual or a group or an entity that wants to put forward their own alternative budget. They can put that $3 million in there. I mean, this is one of the problems with the FTR. This is the only place where an alternative budget can actually use their own revenue numbers. They can do as they please with them. So should a budget go forward that includes casino revenue in it and it passes, we have a really serious problem. And it will be the future council that owns that problem, because once the voters vote on an amount to allocate for things that are contractually obligated, as well as the amount that goes to the school committee, there's no option to go back on those things and say, well, gee, we didn't get our casino revenue, so now we can't pay. That's not how it works. And there's case law that backs that up. So I do think, given what's happened, it is worth considering this and worth letting the public weigh in to see whether or not we should consider restricting this money by ordinance, which can always be changed by a future council, but it does prevent this year the kind of fiscal disaster that we've experienced last year in terms of the budget. So that's my question. Donna?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. My problem is sort of simple. I think we should have had a workshop first, because all of a sudden, I think we should have all discussed this. All of a sudden, there's an ordinance and you like a public hearing, and yet for the public to discuss it, and we didn't even discuss it yet, because I hear what you're saying once again, but there's also other things to consider in scenarios. So why didn't we have a workshop on this? and before we consider an ordinance, so we could discuss all this among ourselves. And then if we all agree, or we get all our questions out there and what scenarios could be or considerations, that we might find that, yeah, okay. But I mean, it's sort of like backwards to me. I just don't like that I was kept out of it in the first place, or that the whole town council couldn't weigh in. And the other thing is that it was interesting that I knew this was going to come down because Chris mentioned it in a Newport Daily News that he didn't like, the way the FTR was and how the casino gaming revenue was. That was a statement made in the Newport Daily News. So I knew something was going to happen. So I don't know who's doing all the talking and everything, but the 7 of us weren't included, or even a workshop would have been helpful.
Well, Donna, I'd like to answer that. First of all, any counselor can put forward an ordinance, and you yourself have brought several forward. So, if the rest of the council, with all due respect, had an interest in this or wanted to do that, anybody could have asked for it. But we're getting close to the deadline for the FTR. The budget committee is going to have to put forward a budget. There'll be an opportunity for a petitioner's budget or outside alternative budgets. And I think that I felt, as much as, ordinances for things like this aren't necessarily my favorite way, I felt like at this point, it's in the best interest of the town not to end up in the same sort of financial pickle. It's also, by the way, the way that Lincoln handles their casino money is by ordinance also. John, or I know there's lots of hands up. I'll get to everybody. John?
So, I know Nancy, Councilor Driggs had her hand up first, so
sorry.
I'll go after her.
I have two questions. The first one, you mentioned, so you're now this proposed ordinance would totally restrict the casino revenue to certain, just remove it from the FDR process. It would restrict it to either bring reserve back up to 3% that we need. And then once that happens, it immediately goes into a restricted municipal capital account. So it's removed from FTR allocation. My question is and I really have a point I want to make, and I hope you let me make it, because Trish, you did a lot of talking about history of how this all came about. And I have I've written a piece, and I'd like to read it into the record, and I will send it to the town council. But the first question I have is, it's my understanding that the state has taken a position that because the casino was closed because the state closed it and it wasn't operating, that we're not entitled to that 3 million. But I think it's under dispute, correct? Aren't we pursuing possibly?
Yes, we are. The solicitor is pursuing a legal avenue, although it is highly unlikely that will be resolved before the FTR.
Oh, fine. So if I could be allowed, it will take me about 1.5 minutes, but I would like to read into the record, and I will send it to the town council, because I'm very concerned about this proposal, and I will be voting against even moving it for public hearing. The concept of this proposed ordinance, which seeks to restrict all revenues from casino gaming, eliminates the right of the Tiverton voters to allocate such monies through the FTR process. And it's already been voted on and rejected by the majority of voters in the town of Tiverton in several ways. The first rejection was when the town elected the CRC from a list of 24 candidates. The entire slate of 9 Tiverton Taxpayer Association candidates, which you referenced, became the CRC. And then town council, of which Hilton, DeMedeiros, Edwards, and Perry were members, had suggested one reason needed for the creation of a new CRC was to determine what to do with the casino revenue. Of 9 TTA endorsed candidates, 3 of whom are now on this town council, myself, Donna Cook, and Steve Clark, ran for the CRC specifically to prevent the then town council from using the CRC process to accomplish its desire to restrict the use of casino gaming revenue. And we won. The rejection was in June 2018 because the town council, again, of which Hilton, DeMedeiros, Edwards, and Perry were members, blocked all of the CRC proposal language from going to the voters at the November 2018 general election, language which included a specific proposal to make it clear that casino gaming revenues go into the general fund for voters to allocate through the FTR process. Members of the TTA endorsed CRC ran for town council. Again, including 3 current town council members, myself, Donna Cook, and Steve Clark, on specific pledges to protect the FTR and to keep the casino gaming revenue in the general fund for Tiverton voters to allocate in the FTR process. At the election, 4 were elected: Cook, Coulter, Driggs, and Katz. 3 of those elected receiving the highest number of votes. Councilor Edwards, who was not reelected, had proposed eliminating the FTR.
Nancy, this is getting to be a
There's
very
one more
personal
point.
topic.
You made your point, Tricia. I'm asking, I just.
Yeah, but I'd ask you not to make personal
TTA,
attacks.
Tricia, we have a right to
You
speak.
mentioned TTA, and I have one more point. The third rejection was when the majority of Tiverton voters rejected the town council submitted ballot question number 10, which you just referred to, Patricia, on that same November 18 general election. The town council had put this budget on, and it was rejected, maybe by 13 votes, but it was a majority rejection. As a result of the recall election in October 2019, Hilton, DeMedeiros, Perry, and Edwards are back on the town council, are now in the majority. Steve Clark was also appointed to the town council to fill a vacancy. There were a flurry of executive orders issued from Hilton and ultimately pushed through to retroactively bless that action by State Representative Jay Edwards. And now here we are.
This is getting to be.
Oh,
really
wait a minute, I'm almost
The
done.
council had an opportunity.
we
to
are
vote
here
on
again
every one
with
of
a-
those resolutions.
Now here we are again with a proposal from Town Council Hilton, which specifically seeks to accomplish what a majority of the Tiverton voters have rejected several times over, both in their choice of candidates for the CRC and the town council majority, and in their rejection of the town council ballot question 10. This proposed ordinance is antithetical to the oft-expressed will of a majority of Tiverton voters and must not be allowed as a way to thwart that will of the majority. The bottom line, in its simplest terms, is a budget like a household budget involves revenues and expenditures. If the revenue comes in low, reduce the expenditures where it makes sense, including capital. Restricting funds to a broad category of spending, as this proposed ordinance does, takes away the flexibility if the revenue comes in short, no matter the source. For all the above reasons, I cannot and will not vote for this proposed ordinance to go to public hearing to remove from Tiverton voter control the allocation through the FTR process of revenues and expenditures, including casino gaming revenue. Thank you, and I will send a copy of this to the town council to be put in the record.
I know that John and Denise want to speak. John, I think, had his hand up first, and then Denise. John.
Madam President, thank you. And while I would love to sit here and debate history and, revise what happened and talk about who won what and, who thinks, who should have got elected and who shouldn't have and what came to the ballot and what shouldn't have. I think the fact remains that we're all now on the council, all 7 of us. We've had numerous ordinances come forward. We've held public hearings on them, right? Madam President, you yourself spoke out, didn't want to go forward with the resolution that we put forward, that Councilor Cook put forward regarding the landfill closure component. I think that for us not to hold a public hearing in light of everything that has happened, it's just, to me, number one, I think it would be disrespectful to you for putting the time and energy to put forward this ordinance for our consideration. And number two, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. We on the council have a fiduciary duty to the constituents who elected us, the voters of this town who elected us to be here. Our job is not simply to sit here and play historian and talk about who won elections. And, if somebody did something back in '05, that's the way that it is, going forward. Our job is to be the board of directors for this municipality, is to set policy, to revise things when they need revision. And quite frankly, what we've seen from the revenue picture, we need to do some revision here. Now, this isn't an outright charter change, and I understand that, Councilor Cook and Councilor Driggs didn't want to see the charter change, and they had a good number of people who supported them. So, the reality is we're looking at this from a different approach. And ultimately, if we move forward, let's say we do move forward and we do something by our by ordinance with the casino revenue, well, if the voters don't like it, they can elect a new council, and the new council can remove that ordinance. Once you do something via ordinance, it's not set in stone. We change ordinances on this council all the time, right? We get new ordinances that are proposed all the time. We hold public hearings for this stuff all the time. And I think we owe it to our constituents and to the voters of this town to at least look at this and at least have a discussion. And more importantly, let the voters of this town come out and be heard, because it's less than a resounding victory or less than a resounding defeat of the charter changes that were proposed when you're talking about 13 votes versus a supermajority that comes out and recalls 2 councilors. So with that, I would like to see, and I don't know if Madam President is looking for a motion, but I would love to see this go forward to a public hearing, because I think that we all need to look at this, and the town needs to look at this and the way this is handled, so that we don't screw our future, and more importantly, my daughter's future.
Council DiMederos. Oops, Denise, hit your unmute button.
I'm not going to be long-winded at all. I'm just going to give a little bit of an opinion that might surprise people. We voted to, we did put it as a charter change, and the town did vote that they did not want it to be restricted. I think the best thing to do at this point is to put it back out to the people and make this a resolution. Make a resolution this year that this year, because of the uncertainty of the casino money, that it is restricted for capital. Because obviously we're not going to be able to afford much of our capital anyway, because we know we're not getting 3 million. We might get 1 million, but we're not sure. But I think if we put it as a resolution, the argument would be, we're back to the people. There's been a lot of advertisement about what's going on, a lot of letters to the editor, a lot of newspaper articles. People know that we're not getting the casino revenue this year. So I think as a resolution for this year, bring it back to the people, see how they vote. If it doesn't pass, well, then people aren't paying attention. But if it doesn't pass, yes, we'll have a problem. But last year, if the charter change would have passed, we would have had a problem last year, because we had put in the casino money into the budget last year. So I don't know what would have happened last year if that charter change would have passed. But what I think is the fairest thing to do is, because we did put it out there as a vote, I think it's only fair to put it as a resolution this year, put it back out and let the people choose, because we let them choose once before. And that's all I have to say.
Steve?
Yeah, I'll just say right up front that I think we should go forward with this proposal. And I know that some of my TTA people are probably going to be disappointed that I said that. But a lot has happened in a year. And, if you don't learn from the past, you're doomed to fail. When we thought that we wanted this to go into the general fund, we thought it was guaranteed. That was the word. It's guaranteed. Nobody ever imagined there was going to be a pandemic. And after this, what else could nullify the guarantee? I guess the state, you could always say the state historically doesn't follow through on their guarantees. So my position has changed. And I think we should put it up to the public and see where it takes us.
Is there anyone else who, before we have a second thing, anybody else who'd like to make a comment? Joe?
This is why we needed a workshop to at least.
No, I'm sorry, Donna, I called on Joe.
Madam President, on this 2 or 3 years ago, that I thought the people should decide where that went right from the beginning, and I feel that way now. I think we should have a public hearing and the people hear all of this station and let them decide. That's how I feel.
I will say one thing just to Councilor DiMederos's point, which I did think about the idea of doing this as a resolution. What concerns me about a resolution is that if an alternative budget were to pass and this resolution passed, we'd have a problem, because if an alternative budget passed that put casino revenue in, and then at the same time, we had a resolution that said, well, the casino revenue isn't going into the operating budget, you've got a problem, because you've got a conflict. And even if someone were to legally try and say, well, the resolution rules, now you have an illegal budget, because by law, you have to have a balanced budget. So now you've just passed a budget that's technically illegal because it's not balanced. And that's part of the reason why I think, at least for this year, as John said, if the town is able to sort out its legal issues with the state and come up with something that makes the guarantee a guarantee, or at least gives us some kind of number that we could, firmly count on, then the ordinance could be changed. Then if that happens, it can be changed. Denise?
I'm going to say this as tactfully as I can. If somebody presents an alternate budget that is putting the casino money into this budget, then it is totally irresponsible. We have no guarantee what that money is going to be right now. And if somebody does put that money in the alternative budget, then yes, you're right. We are in a pickle. We are going to be in trouble. So I'm hoping that anyone in town that's going to do an alternative budget would not do that, because that would be irresponsible budgeting. My second point is, I am not against going to public hearing over this ordinance. I want to hear what people say. But at this point, I'm not for the ordinance. Like I said, I'd rather have this as a resolution and let the people vote on this. But I'm not against going to ordinance. Public hearings are very difficult right now on Zoom. So I hope that we get a lot of participants. And I will vote to go to a public hearing. But as of right now, I'm opposed to this.
Fair enough. So that is really, that really is the question here, is there support to consider this and bring it forward to a public hearing for further discussion? Donna?
I just want some considerations for some scenarios, because the casino money, when you restrict it to capital and it comes up short, the projects don't get done, or money has to be taken out of the operational budget. Right now, it's kind of flexible, but you're gonna make it very stringent. Casino money is restricted to capital, other revenue comes in short. Either operations have to be reduced or taxes have to be increased to make up for the shortfall, because the capital expenses are protected. The casino money is not restricted and revenue comes up short from any source. The town can balance expense reductions and tax increases as needed if it's not restricted to an account. It is there as flexible. restricting the money, you can't touch it. It doesn't help this scenario at all. This is a pandemic sort of a thing. And if, let's say it's restricted already, we couldn't even touch it. How would you do anything with it? It would just be for capital expenses, and that would be the end of that. It wouldn't be in the general fund. You couldn't use it.
I'm sorry, Donna, but I don't follow your logic there at all. This ordinance does say that there would be an established procedure for review and allocation. Municipal capital for this can be defined in a way that would include, other one-time sort of expenses. John, and I
think
I'll be
up
very quick.
before, John.
I think that we've deviated significantly from the agenda, and it's clear to me that the agenda request was to schedule a public hearing on a proposed ordinance. And so I'm not sure if Madam President is looking for a vote as to whether or not we should schedule a public hearing or an ordinance, but we got to do something. And this discussion round and round isn't benefiting anybody. Quite frankly, this is the discussion that should happen at the public hearing. So, Madam President, are you looking for a vote? Because if so, I'd love to make that, because I think we're coming off the rails here.
My hand was up before Mr. Edwards.
yes, John, if you would like to make a motion, that would be fine.
Then, Madam President, I'd love to make a motion that we schedule a public hearing for a proposed ordinance around casino gaming revenue and let the people have their say.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Okay, there's a second. So we'll finish discussion. Again, we're not, I believe that John is right, that the public hearing is the place to debate the merits of this. This is a discussion about moving forward with a public hearing. Councillor Driggs.
You know what? Sorry, there's been a lot of rebuttal going on here, and I just need to, I absolutely am insulted by what Councillor Edwards said. This is, we're not talking about 05 not talking about, we're talking 2 years ago.
Call the question.
Stop a minute. We're
Okay,
talking
you're
about
right.
2 years, one
Okay.
year ago. Wait a minute. Excuse me.
Hang on a second. There is a motion to call the question. Is there a second? To
How
move?
come everybody else get?
I believe that everybody on the council has had at the very least one turn to speak. But there is a motion to move the vote. Is there a second to that? Why is everybody muted suddenly?
I
Okay,
will second it.
okay. There's a motion and a second to call the question and move the vote. Councillor Cook,
Oh,
Councillor Clark,
Yes.
Councillor Perry,
Yes.
Councillor Edwards,
Yes.
Councillor Driggs,
Oh,
Councillor DiMederos.
Yes.
Okay, so now we will go back to the motion. I'm sorry, did somebody say something?
You didn't vote.
Oh, me, I'm a yes, sorry. Okay, so now we will go back to the main question, which is the scheduling, and it should be as soon as possible, given that we have an FTR coming up relatively soon, Madam Clerk, to call for a public hearing to discuss a proposed ordinance regarding the establishment of reserve accounts for funds received from the state with regard to gaming revenue. Madam Clerk has her hand up.
I'm sorry, but I don't have my calendar in this room with me, but could someone look at it? Does someone have a calendar with them?
We need
And
to vote. We
I'd
need to
like
vote my
set the
motion
vote.
first.
Okay, but we
We
need
need
to
the date on that to make, we need the date on the public hearing, and it should be in your motion.
okay.
How far out do
Nancy.
you need, Nancy?
Yeah. Nancy, how far do we need? 10 days?
I believe for an ordinance, you need 21 days, right, Travis?
Oh,
Clark.
So I can get it in Wednesday's newspaper.
Yeah.
We'd have to have a special meeting, and that's why I want this in the vote.
I can go get a calendar.
21. So 21 would be the 3rd.
Okay, so
from today. So it would have to be after the 3rd if we need 21 days.
So the 5th?
So the 5th would be 21 days from the date of the paper, correct?
Yeah, if it's in tomorrow.
August 5th,
When do resolutions have to be in?
we're gonna get to that next.
next item, August 5th.
So,
So
all right.
this is,
Travis, the parliamentarian, you have to tell me what we're doing. Do I need to amend my motion that I made prior about scheduling the hearing to the period certain?
Sorry, yes. Why don't you amend your motion for a date and add a date to it?
Gone?
Nancy, does the 5th work, or should I pick a different date?
Like on?
Well, I would have liked the 3rd or 4th, but
yeah, I
let
suggest we
Travis
do it
tell
before
me.
we get resolutions in, because if the ordinance fails, then I'm gonna propose we put a resolution. So,
you can put it in and withdraw it. But
Okay.
I'm concerned with the time span. So could we have it on the 3rd or the 4th?
No, because if it goes in the paper on Wednesday, then the 5th would be
Okay,
the
okay, so we have to have it on the 5th.
6th. So is the 10th our next meeting though? In our first meeting in August?
yes.
It is, but it'll be too late. It'll be after the time of submitting stuff to the state if you're trying to.
Yeah, but the same thing with the August 5th date. If the resolution,
Nancy, how do you know the date for the resolutions yet? I'm confused.
There's no date for the FTR resolutions.
Right,
There's
there's
a
no
date
date
to
for
submit
FTR.
ballot questions,
Ballot questions, but not the FTR resolution.
not the FTR resolutions. That won't,
oh, okay.
that won't
Okay.
come till I have an FTR date.
Well,
Right.
that's why I'm asking. Okay.
So can I amend is everybody amenable to the 10th, which is a regularly scheduled council meeting? We'll probably get viewership then.
I think if we're gonna have a public hearing on this and we're gonna try and get a lot of input, that having it as a separate meeting so that as many people that need to get on Zoom or want to send letters in or get their stuff written, I'd like to do it as I'd like to not wait until, because the other thing is we don't know the date for the FTR resolutions yet. And if the FTR resolutions end up being the 10th or the 9th, then it's.
So
Then I'll amend my motion to the 6th. How does everybody feel about a Thursday in my motion?
Why not the 5th?
I guess we could do the 5th, but it has to go out in the paper quick. Just trying to.
It would for the 6th too. It doesn't, it's got to be in Wednesday to have it anytime that week.
Okay.
So,
All right.
Does
Then
the budget committee meet on the 6th? Does it make a difference? We can only do one meeting at a time. Chris?
So I think the zoning board might be meeting on the 5th. So is it possible to do the 4th? Because I know you also need to have a hearing, a meeting for your last thing for any charter changes that go in for the ballot. So you might as well try to get the hearing and the ballot questions done so you can get those in timely. I'm just trying to think of, the number of nights you're gonna wind up meeting.
So it looks like the 4th would be
not
the
along with
21st
that.
day, right?
the 4th would be the 21st day, Travis, you're telling us that?
So is that
It would
legal,
be-
Travis?
I'm sorry, it would be the 22nd day. It would
from
be the
now, but
22nd
when
day.
it goes to the paper.
Isn't the planning board on the 4th?
No, the zoning board, I believe.
I have the
It'll go in
planning.
the
board.
paper Wednesday.
So it's 21 days from Wednesday, which would be the 5th.
Oh, from Wednesday. I apologize. Yeah.
Why don't we try and do it on the 5th? Because that's 21 days and it's.
Then I will put Nancy, make my motion include the 5th.
I don't have my work schedule out. I'm just hoping I can make it. I'll try.
Well, Denise, would you prefer then the Thursday?
No, I don't have my work schedule out for August, so we'll have to wait.
Okay. Well, let's do it for the 5th. So there's a motion to move this ordinance forward for a public hearing to a date of August 5th, 2020. Is there a second on that motion?
Second,
There's a motion and a second. We'll go ahead and vote.
Barry?
Who just said the 3rd?
No, Madam Clerk said Joe Perry
Oh,
because she was jotting down who seconded.
I. Okay, so Counselor Edwards,
Yes.
Counselor Driggs? Counselor Driggs?
You're muted.
This is for the second? For the second,
I missed it.
for the second.
We're voting on the motion to move this forward to a public hearing on August 5th.
No.
Counselor Cook,
No,
Counselor Clark,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
Counselor DiMederos,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay. Last item, under general business. FTR resolutions and November ballot questions. We're asking the council that if you have any potential FTR resolutions and or ballot questions that we would like the council to put forward at either the FTR or the November election, that they be submitted for our July 27th meeting. Now, we can discuss them, we can vote on them, we can change our mind, but it would be a good idea for us to start and have this stuff done. Nancy, there is a firm date for ballot questions, which is?
August 5th.
So August 5th, anything that the council wanted to put on the ballot for the November election is due by August 5th. We don't have a due date yet for the FTR resolutions because we'll get that once the budget committee, is ready to do their final budget, but it would be good for us to have our resolutions in place. So I'm asking you all to think about them, and any that you want considered to please submit them to Nancy in time to make the 27th agenda. I don't think that we have any items listed tonight under the town solicitor or town administrator, but we do have executive session, which is the portion that we're at now. So do I have a motion to go into executive session?
Madam President,
Yes, Denise.
I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session under litigation 42465A2, status update and settlement posture authority for the following tax appeal cases. 1, James Karam versus Tiverton, NC 2017-0119, Tiverton Point LCC versus Tiverton, NC 2017-0118, Nebergall v. Tiverton, NC 2012-004, Westport
It's
Trust
executive
versus
session.
Tiverton, NC 2013-0090.
Second.
This will be done shortly.
Yes.
A motion and a second. Joe Perry, you're a yes. Nancy Driggs,
Yes.
Denise DiMederos,
Yes.
Steve Clark,
Yes.
Donna Cook,
yes.
and I'm a yes. So we're now in